information I'm on. Right then, Stanley Kubrick tackled many controversial subjects in his films. He often alluded to the power and corruption of the elite, as well as the mechanisms used to maintain their power. In 1975, the existence of state-sponsored mind control research and experimentation in the form of MKUltra, it was 149 sub-projects, I believe, slightly exposed by the Church Committee hearings of the US Congress and a Gerald Ford Commission to investigate CIA activities in the United States. On December the 19th, 1971, less than 4 years before the hearings, Kubrick unleashed Clockwork Orange on the American viewing public. It was released in the UK a couple of months later, a month or two later, January 13th, 1972. Now, the film squarely tackled the paradigm of free will versus state control. In this case, the morality and dynamics of state-sponsored behavioural modification and trauma-based mind control. The film, for those who aren't familiar with it, centres on Alex and his violent gang of droogs. Alex is subjected to state-sponsored mind control in order to alter his sadistic behaviour. And the central concept of the film is rooted in behavioural psychology and made manifest by the Ludovico technique. Now, a number of insiders have stated that Ludovico bears a striking resemblance to less publicised techniques practised by the CIA. Following the film's release, the UK press associated a number of violent crimes with the film. There was a fierce backlash against the film prompted by UK parliamentary figures, mainstream media watchdogs and the various arms of the UK censorship. However, the origins of this furore seem to be mired in speculation. The producers of the 1999 UK documentary Still Ticking, The Return of a Clockwork Orange, attempted to interview Ted Heath and Jack Straw. Both seemingly helped in some way to encourage the aforementioned public outcry of the film. They too declined to be involved in the documentary. The film was ultimately withdrawn from the UK circulation. For many years, all and sundry were blamed for the effective banning of the film. Even the Home Secretary of the Conservative government, Reginald Maudling, was alleged to have played a part at the time. After his death in 1999, Kubrick's family and associates reiterated that Kubrick himself was responsible for withdrawing the film. According to the film critic Alexander Walker, Kubrick was visited by Hertfordshire police, warned about the power of the film and how real droogs could turn up on his doorstep to threaten his wife and children. It's even been suggested that it was the police themselves who decided that a measure needed to diffuse public negativity about the film. Thus, the decision was made to pull the film. In the history of Hollywood cinema, it's almost unheard of for a director to withdraw their own film. It's only ever really happened on a couple of occasions when it's a flop. Usually the decision is made by the studio, not by the director. But A Clockwork Orange was a commercial success in the UK, hugely so in the US, garnered a number of awards. Are we to assume that Warner Brothers simply asked no questions and agreed to the UK ban of the film? However, this is Stanley Kubrick we're talking about, the man who banned MGM executives from the set of 2001: A Space Odyssey during production. A Clockwork Orange remained withdrawn until Kubrick's death. 3 decades maintaining a film ban. It's a long time, simply in order to allow public animosity to die down. Surely it would die down long before that. It was revealed by close friends that just before his death, Kubrick discussed ending the ban with Warner Brothers. Of course, his untimely death followed, and Warner's decided to release the film anyway. It's been speculated that the film in some fashion added to the circumstances that surrounded his death, and I'll come to that subject later. So, mind control in other Kubrick films. Some researchers believe that the apparitions of the murdered twin girls in The Shining may allude to Gemini, represented by twins, and NASA's Gemini project, which preceded the Apollo program. It's worth noting that the twins have also allegedly been used, not these twins, have been used in various mind control projects. Fritz Springmeier and Cisco Wheeler discussed twinning and bonding in their book, The Illuminati Formula to Create an Undetectable Mind Control Slave. They say the trauma bonding that they undergo consists of A, being put in a life or death situations together, B, given programming scripts which intertwine and fill in to complete each other to make a whole, C, are placed in jobs that require total compliance with the program in order to survive, and D, with the programming in order to survive, are bonded together to other people. And in the book Project Monarch by Ron Patton, he also examined this phenomenon. He said they essentially share two halves of the programmed information, making them interdependent upon each other. Paranormal phenomena such as astral projection, telepathy, ESP, etc. appear to be more pronounced. And these aspects are considered to be part of the mind control phenomenon that runs thematically and literally. I mean, thematically you look at duality, mirror opposites, mirrors, that sort of thing, throughout the music, television and film industry. In such twin cases, like the Shining Twins, one is often seen smiling while the other looks serious. Check out them two there. Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, biological twins. A lot of people suggested that there's some kind of mind control been going on with them. And of course there are some very, very strange circumstances surrounding the two Coreys, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. And that's what some people consider to be ritualised twinning. And they've actually alleged it themselves. They've actually sort of talked about it in not so many words. Another similarity associated with trauma-based mind control is allegedly known as monarch programming. The label monarch itself in relation to mind control is hotly debated amongst researchers. Now, whatever name it goes by, it may be monarch, it may not be, but the actual process itself has been clearly documented. Countless first-hand testimonies given by victims. Researcher Ron Patton describes the process as desensitising the majority of the population using subliminals and neurolinguistic programming, and deliberately constructing specific triggers and keys for base programming of highly impressionable children. So is it purely coincidental that a key scene in the film, The Shining, with the Shining Twins, flanked by a poster advertising Ski Monarch? Maybe it is just a coincidence. One aspect of the CIA's MK Ultra research was experimenting with LSD. I've talked about this extensively in the past, particularly when I came here and talked about Star Trek last time. The CIA also covertly produced Orange Sunshine LSD, amongst others, and distributed it into the wider population. And it is curious that the popularity of 2001: A Space Odyssey gained something of a boost thanks to certain members of the 60s counterculture who began experiencing incredible highs via the combination of LSD and a viewing of the Stargate finale sequence in the film. Viewing figures seemingly skyrocketed following this revelation. And it also prompted MGM Studios to repackage the film with the tagline, "The Ultimate Trip." What type of trip are they talking about? That tag has remained with the film to this day. Kubrick had contact with a number of individuals within the CIA MK Ultra scene. For example, Alfred Hubbard, who seemingly introduced Kubrick to LSD, was a key player within the CIA's LSD distribution network. Hubbard was a high-level officer in the CIA's immediate predecessor, the OSS. According to Jim Keith, that is a highly researched book, Mind Control, World Control. There's a degree of evidence suggesting that Hubbard was heavily involved with the Manhattan Project, the project to create the first atomic bomb. Hubbard also worked with NASA via defence subcontractor Teledyne during the 1960s on a project testing psychochemical agents on astronauts and pilots. You would not want a pilot flying you if they'd been taking something, let alone an astronaut. That's from Acid Dreams, a book by Martin A. Lee and Bruce Schlain. It's worth checking out, that book. Many of those Nazis brought to the US via Operation Paperclip by the CIA's predecessor, the OSS, I might add, were utilised in both the Apollo programme and MK Ultra. And it's been speculated that some of the Apollo astronauts themselves were subject to mind control experiments. At the post-Apollo 11 press conference, the three astronauts appeared awkward, subdued and even uncomfortable. At times they appeared dazed, confused and even bored. It's interesting when you compare this apathetic, borderline lifeless behaviour with the almost identical characteristics of Kubrick's Discovery astronauts in the film 2001. For that matter, if you check out the characters in most of Kubrick's films, they're either caricatures or they are lifeless characters, central characters in his films. So with these things in mind, is it possible that this scene in Clockwork Orange, remember that it's a film about mind control, has a deeper significance? Listen to what the drunken man says when he's about to be beaten up.
Go on, do me in, you bastard cowards. We don't want to live anyway. Not in a stinking world like this.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
It's a stinking world because there's no law and order anymore. It's a stinking world because it lets the young get onto the old, like you done. Oh, it's no world for an old man any longer. What sort of a world is it at all? Men on the moon, and men spinning around the earth, and there's not no attention paid to earthly law and order no more. Oh, dear land, I fought for thee.
So that's the first example of something that he gives. Men on the moon and men around space. Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut, considered to be the closest a Hollywood production has ever come to metaphorically spilling the beans about aspects of the global elite. The film alludes to elite collusion, secret societies, ritualistic and occult practices and mind control programming. The plot is based on Arthur Schnitzler's 1926 novella Traum Novel. Interesting use of the word traum there, trauma. Dream Story translates as. Focuses on Bill and Alice Harford, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, a married couple who mix with elements of New York's social elite. Bill learns that his wife has considered cheating on him. This leads him on a journey encountering prostitutes, drugs, murder and intimidation. The nexus of his journey is reached when Bill naively finds himself at a large social gathering of masked elite individuals partaking in secret society rituals and all manner of naked sexual debauchery. It's a gathering that he's not supposed to witness. The exterior locale of the gathering, Somerton, Long Island in the film, was actually shot at Mentmore Towers in the UK. Dating from the 19th century, Mentmore was a country house built by members of the elite Rothschild family. It's been suggested that by selecting this location, Kubrick was trying to show his audience an example of the real-world equivalents of the elite figures witnessed in the film. Documentation shows that masked events were held by the Rothschild family at this location, including one such example held in 1972 by Baroness Marie Helena de Rothschild and Baron Alexis de Reddy. Photographs from the event show some guests wearing Venetian masks quite similar to those seen in the film, naked female mannequins, and images of invitations showing the text printed in reverse writing, a theme which is common in occult and ritualistic practices. There's an interesting similarity with this practice in the film Eyes Wide Shut. When Bill enters the gathering, the song heard in the background is called Backwards Priests and features a Romanian Orthodox divine liturgy played backwards. The reversal or inversion of sacred objects is typical of black magic and satanic rituals. Bill Harford witnesses a high priest dressed in red, performing a ritual in the centre of a circle formed by 11 barely clothed women and numerous masked onlookers. Upon being exposed, Bill is placed in the ritualistic circle, awaiting judgment. Kubrick loves that idea of symbolism of circular objects, ringed imagery, that sort of thing. He's used it many, many times in his films. There's a couple of examples there. Note the circular table in Dr. Strangelove, around which the gathered global elite players deciding the fate of the world. At the ritual gathering, Bill is redeemed by a character called Amanda, who he previously, earlier in the film, he saves from a heroin overdose. The priest asks Amanda, "Are you sure you understand what you're taking upon yourself doing this?" The next day, Bill reads in the newspaper that Amanda has been found dead in her room from a drug overdose. Ritualistic deaths, particularly in the entertainment industry, are often disguised as simply drug-related, untimely, or accidental deaths. I'm sure there are some which are purely those, but there are a number which we could ask a few more questions about. There's some there, some examples there. Closer inspection of the on-screen newspaper, which reports Amanda's death, reveals the story of a woman who was emotionally troubled as a teenager and underwent treatments. What kind of treatments? That she had important friends in the fashion and entertainment worlds, and that she had an affair with a powerful fashion designer who got wowed by her private seductive solo performances. The article also names the powerful fashion designer as Leon Vitali. And Leon Vitali is actually a real person. He was a long-time Kubrick collaborator, played the elder Lord Bullingdon in Barry Lyndon, served as casting director and personal assistant on The Shining, Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut. And in the end credits of the film, he is the actor listed as playing the ritual priest, the red-clad priest in the film. The newspaper article description matches the traits of an alleged type of mind control programming called beta sex kitten programming. I'm sure if you've listened to any of the talks by Neil Sanders, he's talked about this sort of thing. This seemingly utilises women for sexual slavery, abuse, ritual and sacrifice, amongst other things. The practice is extensively alluded to in the film, television, music, fashion and pornographic industry, for that matter. In the context of this film, it's been suggested that the women seen at the ritual are probably victims of beta sex kitten programming. It's also been suggested that pretty much all of the female characters in the film have been suggested to some sort of mind control. There are several nods to cats and kittens, the sex kitten programming throughout the film. Also the associated princess programming, there's a little image there, throughout the film. Adam Go-Rightly has written an excellent article called An Interpretation of Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut that explores the themes of mind control in Kubrick's films. It's worth checking out those. The costume store where Bill rents his mask is situated in a two-storey building and named respectively the Rainbow and Under the Rainbow. The store owner seems to be aware of the elite gatherings in the film, and is witnessed prostituting his own underage daughter, for that matter, from his shop. The name of the store may be a nod to The Wizard of Oz and the alleged Disney mind control programming that's often talked about. Going over the rainbow is also a term that recurs in mind control literature, referring to those whose condition causes them to disassociate from reality. Bill's wife Alice hints that she may lost recall of some of her own memories and refers to certain memories and thoughts as dreams in the film. In fact, some people have suggested that pretty much everything that Bill experiences in the film is a dream, but it's a bit of an extended story, that one. The last scene of the movie takes place at a toy store where a number of items appear to symbolically represent aspects of mind control and ritual practices. One such toy is the magic circle. And think about the circle, the circle at the ritual with the red carpet. Kubrick completed his final cut of Eyes Wide Shut in March 1999. And within the first few days of the month, believed to be the 2nd of March, the film was viewed by Stanley Kubrick, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman and Warner Brothers co-chairman Bob Daly and Terry Semel. It's believed that a further screening was viewed by Kubrick's close family and friends a couple of days later. Kubrick died days later, on the 7th of March, from an alleged heart attack. He was aged 70. It's widely claimed that Kubrick's cut of March 1999 was almost an hour longer in length than the public released film. At least one removed scene allegedly involving an empty room with a pentagram-like circle in the centre, I think it's about 30 seconds long. That has been verified as being cut from the film now. How many more scenes were cut? So why was this material removed from the film? At the world premiere for Eyes Wide Shut, both Bob Daly and Terry Semel simultaneously announced their retirement as co-heads of Warner Brothers. Bit of an odd one, that. Also donated a huge amount of money to Hollywood at the same event. The myriad of continuity errors, particularly the pool room scene towards the end of the film, indicate heavy editing that is inconsistent with Kubrick's style and standard. If you know anything about Kubrick's way of filming and editing, it's not consistent. Kubrick loved to edit his films with meticulous precision. He once said himself, editing is the only aspect of the cinematic art that is unique. It shares no connection with any other art form, writing, acting, photography, things that are major aspects of the cinema. It's still not unique to it, but editing is. Took it very seriously. Kubrick's edit was witnessed and approved by Warner Brothers and seemingly differs dramatically from the released film. We have to ask why. Ironically, Kubrick's contract with Warner Brothers stated that Eyes Wide Shut would be released, and it was released in the United States on July the 6th, 1999, exactly 30 years to the day of the Apollo 11. It's maintained that Kubrick died in his sleep of natural causes. A number of friends and family described the death as sudden and shocking, given that he was apparently in good health. Although unexpected and sudden deaths do not necessarily constitute suspicious circumstances, a number of people now believe that Kubrick was assassinated in light of Eyes Wide Shut, and that Kubrick's revelations about ritualistic practices and secretive collusion within the global elite in the film. While this notion may seem unlikely, it's not without precedence, and certainly within the realms of plausibility. Induced heart attacks for assassination purposes are far more common than you might think they are. CIA, for example, have practiced it for years. I just want to play a clip now from a documentary called Secrets of the CIA, featuring former operative Mary Embry, and it got some footage from the church hearings as well. Shows one example, only one, of some of the techniques being used by the CIA to carry out assassinations by heart attack during the late 60s and early 70s.
Also, I had to find, one time they wanted me to find out if there was such a thing as a poison that was undetectable, especially one that seemed to mimic a heart attack, that would kill someone, but it would appear that they had a heart attack. I did find such a thing.
Does this pistol fire the dart?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman, and a special one was developed which potentially would be able to enter the target without perception.
The poison was frozen into some sort of dart, and then it was shot at very high speed into the person, so when it reached the person it would melt inside them, and the only thing would be like one little tiny red dot on their body, which was hard to detect. There wouldn't be a needle left or anything like that in the person.
But also the toxin itself would not appear in the autopsy?
Yes, so that there was no way of perceiving that the target was hit.
So that sort of thing does go on. I'm not saying that's what happened to him, but it does go on. The film Rosemary's Baby, like Eyes Wide Shut, is a film that explored ritualised practices. After the movie was distributed, Sharon Tate, the wife of its director Roman Polanski, along with 7 others, were savagely murdered at Polanski's home. The murders were eventually blamed on the Manson family. They also displayed many hallmarks of occult and ritualised practices. Over the years, a number of claims of sexually inappropriate behaviour have been heaped upon Polanski. The murder of Sharon Tate unfolded against the backdrop of Laurel Canyon, Los Angeles, and that scene was a hotbed of mind control victims, counterintelligence operations by the CIA and various other agencies, ritual and cult practices for several decades. And if you want to read more on that subject, I highly recommend Dave McGowan, who's done a huge amount of research into that subject, the Laurel Canyon scene. The reason why I'm talking about Rosemary's Baby is noted as an allegorical reenactment of Aleister Crowley's Babylon Alamantra working, a ritual invocation designed to produce a magical child that would be a product of her environment rather than her heredity. A similar observation has been made about 2001: A Space Odyssey. In the film there are a succession of celestial alignments that create eclipses. They prompt the eventual appearance of the Star Child entity at the end of the film. Some researchers discuss the Moon Child in relation to the Sun Child, Sun King, Horus, that sort of thing. The Sun is, of course, a star. So the natural progression of the Moon Child, Sun Child, is the Star Child. I should note that the Greek-Roman king of the Sun was also named Apollo. Crowley's ritual was attempted by NASA JPL rocket scientist and renowned occultist Jack Parsons, a man who inspired the nickname the Babylon Bunch to encompass many of those scientists and occultists who worked at NASA and JPL. Parsons in turn attempted the ritual with the help of L. Ron Hubbard. Hubbard founded Scientology. And Tom Cruise is the top poster boy for Scientology, and was the star of Kubrick's final film. Nicole Kidman was also involved in Scientology. It's also worth noting as well that Vivian Kubrick, Stanley Kubrick's daughter, is renowned for being a member of the Church of Scientology. As part of the Babylon ritual, it was necessary to identify the Scarlet Woman, the one who would give birth to the Moon Child. It's curious that pretty much all of the female ritual characters in Eyes Wide Shut could be identified as Scarlet Women, in that they're all redheads. They're all red-headed women. Check out the film. I think there's only 2 female characters in the entire film with any other colour hair. On the subject of red, it may not have anything to do with it, but Kubrick did have a fascination with these colours. Black and white, blue, and particularly red, all said to be important in elite and ritualistic belief systems. And you check out the colour palette of many of his films, he does love those colours. Kubrick's expose of the sexual nature of the elite ritualistic and occult practices cannot be overlooked. The overt sexualisation of adolescence is very much a part of these practices. Kubrick alluded to this in Eyes Wide Shut, not only with regards to the shopkeeper's daughter, who he prostitutes, but also to Bill and Alice Harford's daughter as well. It's been suggested, and it does appear that way, that in the final moments of the film, the little girl is being led off by 2 strange men. It's very brief, but it is there, and it does appear as though that is actually happening, and he's not given any explanation for why it's there, what it's to do with. The theme featured as a central plot device in Kubrick's earlier work, Lolita. Obviously, it's about paedophilia. It may also have been alluded to in The Shining. Researcher Rob Ager has suggested the character of Danny Torrance is perhaps the victim of sexual abuse at the hands of his parents. In the film, Jack Torrance is seen reading a copy of Playgirl magazine. You can see it clearly there. And this is a blow-up of the front cover of that same magazine, which includes an article entitled Incest, Why Parents Sleep with Their Children. What the hell is that doing there? Allegations of inappropriate sexual behaviour were levelled at Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey collaborator Arthur C. Clarke as well. These allegations, combined with Clarke's eventual disclosed homosexual orientation, have prompted a wealth of discussion on the internet. Some people have suggested that Clarke's connection with the elite placed him in a potentially compromising situation. They may have been set up. Others have suggested that he'd been set up for a fall, basically. It's curious that these allegations surfaced just a year before Kubrick's untimely death. I must emphasise at this point that the allegations made about Clarke were subsequently dropped. Some details about the allegations appear on Clarke's Wikipedia page. I'll just read some of it out to you. On 26th of May 2000, Clarke was made a Knight Bachelor for services to literature at a ceremony in Colombo. The award of a knighthood had been announced in the 1998 New Year Honours, but investiture with the award had been delayed at Clarke's request because of an accusation by the British tabloid The Sunday Mirror excuse me, of paedophilia. The charge was subsequently found to be baseless by the Sri Lankan police. According to the Daily Telegraph London, the Mirror subsequently published an apology and Clarke chose not to sue for defamation. Clarke was then duly knighted. In my book I've got extensive links to this subject. You can read up on that and follow them up on the internet. Yet more of these associated themes were planned for inclusion in the film that Kubrick intended to make after Eyes Wide Shut, called AI Artificial Intelligence. The film centres on the concept of artificially created children as substitutes for the loss of a human child. Sorry, I'm jumping to the sentence there. Created children as substitutes for childless couples, grieving parents, trying to come to terms with the loss of a human child. Sorry. However, Eyes Wide Shut became Kubrick's last film, and AI was ultimately completed by Steven Spielberg. It's said that Kubrick's plot was radically darker in tone than the eventually released film, more deeply examining why people would want to create lifelike children that never grow up. In the film, this ties back to Apollo again maybe, the moon is actually a facade. It's a vehicle carrying hunters who round up droids and place them in cages at something called the Flesh Fair, an event where obsolete and unlicensed droids are destroyed in front of cheering crowds. So does this moon motif connect with the deeper themes of NASA? According to researcher James David Manning, NASA astronaut Gordon Cooper stated unequivocally that NASA administrated a mind control program involving school children called Space Kids. He said that the program was run through an MK program. There is some documentation to back that up. So does this scene in the film, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but is this short scene from AI, does it have a greater significance?
I see the moon.
Is it real?
I don't know, David.
Is it coming?
I can't tell yet.
Let's not walk this way.
Where are we going?
This way now.
Are you in bad trouble? Have you run away from someone?
My mommy told me to run away.
What do you make of that? Saturn worship now, along with other aspects of elite belief systems, is allegedly connected with the sexual abuse of children. The act of which is viewed by many twisted and depraved agenda participants, and they are twisted and depraved, as the ritualistic sacrifice of innocence. The researcher and author of the website SaturnDeathCult.com, Troy D. McLaughlin, asks, is the greater body of Stanley Kubrick's films an expose of a hidden elite obsessed with dark Saturnian sexual rites, paedophilia, and the planned ritualistic transmutation of mankind? I just briefly want to go through some of the bits and pieces about Saturn worship. Saturn has been worshipped and revered in many forms. These include the Roman god Saturnus, the Greek god Cronus, and the Carthaginian god Baal or Moloch. Saturn has been associated with satanic iconography as well. and also depicted as Baphomet. It's curious that many of these deified figures, for better or worse, have been described as devourers of children and worshipped with the ritual sacrifice of innocence. It's interesting as well that Santa Claus originates with Saturn and his fascination with children. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. An interesting image comparison here from The Shining. The final image that we see in the film, the pose of Jack Torrance and Baphomet. Saturn worship, also known as the Saturn death cult or the Brotherhood of Saturn, seemingly based upon the once overbearing deification of the actual planet Saturn. A number of researchers assert that the ringed planet may once have occupied a closer position to Earth in the solar system. According to mythology, Saturn was brightly visible from the Earth and occupied a relatively fixed polar north position in the sky. That the Earth and Mars may have orbited Saturn, and that this group of celestial bodies may have once existed outside of our current solar system, and that Saturn may once have been a sub-brown dwarf star as well. Some researchers believe that a period of possibly catastrophic upheaval reconfigured the solar system into its current alignment. Conventional science would have us believe that such large-scale events haven't occurred since the initial formation of the solar system. However, there are many researchers, notably Immanuel Velikovsky, but there are many others, suggest that this is perhaps not the case. Notions such as the electric universe model and the effects of plasma physics and even hyperdimensional energy suggest that the possibility that our solar system is in constant change, constant state of change. Some elite and secret society belief systems quietly continue to look upon Saturn as a supreme object of deification. Saturn worship is often associated with a black stone or cube. This object has been interpreted as many things, including the alchemical philosopher's stone and the mythological Pandora's box. If you look, many of these items can be traced back to Saturnian mythology. Actual black cubes are visible in numerous notable worldwide locations. And the black cube appears widely in contemporary popular culture as well, in film and television. Symbolically, a few examples here is the Allspark cube in the Transformers film franchise, the Lament configuration in the Hellraiser films, the Borg cube in Star Trek franchise. I would be here for quite a while, as I put there, if I started talking about the symbolic significance of Saturn and black cubes in the television series Doctor Who. Check it out, especially that episode, The Power of Three, Slow Invasion by Black Cubes. What the hell was that episode all about? I don't know. But it's certainly there. It's prominent in Doctor Who. The hexagon is significant in Saturnian mythology, as it is a two-dimensional representation of the three-dimensional cube shape. Bizarrely, NASA has taken photographs showing a huge hexagonal phenomenon that encompasses Saturn's north polar region. What I find even more interesting is that the hexagon shape itself dates back to Saturnian mythology. If that's the case, how would people have known that Saturn itself had a hexagon at its north pole, considering these photographs were taken relatively recently? It's worth thinking about. So the central plot driver and motif 2001 is a black monolith, which is a rectangular black stone. It doesn't actually extend to being a black cube, but it is a black stone. The film's screenplay co-writer Arthur C. Clarke allegedly had a fascination with the Brotherhood of Saturn. Also true of many people working in or connected to NASA. And various examples of Saturnian symbolism in his novels, Clarke's novels. Some research considers Saturn to be the apex of Gnostic theology. And it's worth noting that Clarke's groundbreaking work, Childhood's End, is considered by some to be a Gnostic thesis. I think there's a significant difference though between Gnosticism and Saturn worship in tone, in terms of the implications of what Saturnian beliefs are all about. Gnosticism is a far more benign thing, but it may be that at some point in the past there was some cross-pollination of the beliefs. Arthur C. Clarke wrote the novel 2001 concurrently with the film version and published it in 1968 after the film's release. In the book, the specific destination of the spaceship Discovery is the Saturnian moon Iapetus, also known as the Death Star moon. Saturn has also been called that. Saturn's actually been called the Death moon, the Death planet, the Death Star, the Black Moon, the Black Planet. According to Frederick Ordway, the film production began production with Jupiter as the intended destination of the Discovery mission. Ordway once stated that Kubrick decided in September 1965 to change the setting to Saturn. He apparently according to Ordway, persisted, pointing out the beauty of the Saturnian ring system and the spectacular visual effects of the discovery travelling near or even through it. Would I do some investigation and prepare a memo outlining the latest knowledge of Saturn, its rings and its moons, he asked. And would I focus on anything that seemed out of the ordinary, something intriguing and unexplainable that Arthur C. Clarke might weave into the revised screenplay? I prepared the memo. Kubrick was delighted, and Clarke backed the change with great enthusiasm. He brilliantly wrote Jupiter out and Saturn in. Everyone was happy except for Wally Vivers, Doug Trumbull and others in the special effects department. Despite their wizardry, they felt uncomfortable with the thought of having to accommodate the discovery moving within the Saturnian ring system. On top of all their problems, they were not in the mood to tackle a new one that might prove intractable. Anyway, they were all under severe time restraints on myriad other parts of the film. Special effects carried the day as far as the motion picture was concerned, but Clarke was so delighted with Saturn that he maintained it as the target planet in the novel version. Now, according to Ordway, an atmosphere of tension lingered over the remainder of the production, particularly from Kubrick himself, following the return to the Saturn locale, the abandoning of the Jupiter locale, abandoning Saturn. He said, as October and November faded into December 1965, tension grew around the MGM studios in Borehamwood, and that Kubrick became less friendly to those around him, adding to the displeasure of his associates. He also noted that a top member of the crew abruptly resigned as a result of this. At the time of production, Ordway noted, the film experts here say that this is a highly unorthodox and difficult film. The special effects supervisor Douglas Trumbull seemingly quickly resolved the alleged technical problems involved with Saturn when he immediately moved on to direct the film Silent Running and employed effects that were developed but not completed for 2001. If you check out the effects, they're pretty good for the time. So considering that he moved straight on, concurrently, I believe, working on Silent Running as well as working on 2001. So what's wrong with those effects if they were so substandard? During a March 6, 2011 interview on Red Ice Radio, Jay Widener disputed the claims that the availability of special effects technology to realise Saturn in 2001. He asserted that Kubrick was pressured to make the changes by highly placed occultists. He said Kubrick worried that the film was too blatant in its depiction of the role played by Saturn in their occult human transmutation agenda. It has been suggested that these highly placed occultists may have had NASA connections, given the documented connection between NASA production and the agency. There may be other clues to Saturn worship and the NASA crossover in the naming of the Saturn rockets used in the Apollo program. And it's also worth pointing out that Saturn is represented in astrology by Capricorn, so we have to wonder about the naming of the NASA-supported film Capricorn 1. Did it have a deeper significance if it effectively means Saturn 1? According to Troy McLaughlin, in dealing with these occult NASA insiders while faking the Apollo 11 landings, Kubrick would have been initiated into their perception that humanity's destiny is inextricably linked to an occult and metaphysical understanding of Saturn. I just want to point out here as well, I am working on a film at the moment called Cubring, which is all about the elite obsession with Saturn. Hopefully I shall have that on my YouTube channel in about a month, so if you want to check that out, I'll put the links on my website for that when I've got it finished. Some other symbolism now in 2001. February 1993, the legendary alternative knowledge researcher Bill Cooper discussed the esoteric significance of 2001 on his radio show. Cooper described the monolith as a symbolic catalyst for the beginning of the programming control of humanity, effectively imparting forbidden knowledge to humanity and dismantling paradise in its wake. Themes are there in the film. Witnessed in the Dawn of Man sequence, the forbidden knowledge leads to the death of one of the apes at the hands of another. Cooper believed that the ape moon watcher, moon again, was a symbol of the first priest or initiate of the mystery school teachings, instrumental in guarding the secrets of the ages, astral theology, the study of the moon, stars, sun, etc. Cooper also highlighted the 6 transformations that Bowman goes through in the finale of the film, the 6th level of attainment in the mystery teachings, and the associated 666 paradigm of occult teachings. There are some very subtly embedded 666 motifs in the film itself. I got this from not exactly the most reliable website, Godlike Productions, on their forum, but I have been able to check out most of this and it is accurate. The monoliths in the film appear 666 seconds. The time between the first appearance and the final disappearance of each of the 4 monoliths, the 4 times added together, is 666 seconds. The number of camera shots starting from the dawn of man, the first shot after the opening credits, to the end, the last shot of the closing credits, is 666 seconds. The running time of the film in seconds, from the beginning of the MGM logo, lion logo, to the fade out of the story, is equal to the number of moon phases contained in 666 years. Everything before and after the movie proper, that is the overture, end credits and exit music, adds up to 666 seconds. And that can be verified. Is it coincidence or not? Who knows? Kubrick died on March the 7th, 1999, precisely 666 days prior to the first day of the year in which his most famous film, 2001, was made. Is set, sorry. Another number, the Masonic Trinity, a lot of people say it has a significance. It obviously connects to 6 as well. Power of 3. The numbers 2001, 2 plus O plus O plus 1 equals 3. Just a few examples here. 3 words in the title of the film, A Space Odyssey. There are 3 eclipses in the film. There's an eclipse of 3 celestial bodies at the beginning of the film. The story takes place on or around 3 celestial bodies, the Earth, the Moon and Jupiter. There are 3 principal monoliths in the film. 1 on or around each of the 3 aforementioned celestial bodies. The 4th monolith is briefly seen in the final moments of the trippy Stargate sequence of the film. HAL consists of 3 letters, H-A-L, 1 letter removed from IBM for that matter. There are 3 conscious entities on the ship, Dave, Frank Paul and HAL. There are 3 astronauts in hibernation. The World Riddle theme plays 3 times in the film. The Discovery spacecraft itself is made of 3s. There are 3 overall sections, the engine, the spine and the forward sphere. The engine consists of 3 hexagons, and ties into the Saturn stuff maybe, each with 2 exhausts, so we've got 6 engines there. There are 3 pod bay doors, housing 3 small pod vehicles, and the spine of the craft itself is constructed of ribs. Each of these ribs are made of 3 triangular shaped sections. There are 11 rib sections in total, totaling 33 triangular sections. 33 degrees of Freemasonry, maybe. A few other points. Some of the spacecrafts in the film display markings that are similar to the Masonic Knights of Malta, Knights Templar motif. Check them out. Yeah. Now, Stanley Kubrick gave very few interviews in his life. On March the 8th, 1997, just 2 years before his death, he was presented with the D.W. Griffiths Lifetime Achievement Award at the Directors Guild of America Awards, and surprised the audience by giving a short filmed message of appreciation. This is what he says, and it's a very strange bit, to say the least.
I think there's an intriguing irony in naming the Lifetime Achievement Award after D.W. Griffiths, because his career was both an inspiration and a cautionary tale. But Griffith was always ready to take tremendous risks in his films and in his business affairs. He was always ready to fly too high. And in the end, the wings of fortune proved for him, like those of Icarus, to be made of nothing more substantial than wax and feathers. And like Icarus, when he flew too close to the sun, they melted. And the man whose fame exceeded the most illustrious filmmakers of today spent the last 17 years of his life shunned by the film industry he had created. I've compared Griffith's career to the Icarus myth, but at the same time, I've never been certain whether the moral of the Icarus story should only be, as is generally accepted, don't try to fly too high, or whether it might also be thought of as forget the wax and feathers and do a better job on the wings.
So what is he really saying there? There's a deeply significant observation for Kubrick to make in one of his few final public appearances, perhaps his most prophetic one. It may well be that after years of metaphorically flying too close to the flames, Kubrick ultimately got burned. And consider the scene in Eyes Wide Shut when Bill Harford is confronted with what he saw at the secret ritual gathering.
Listen, Bill, I don't think you realize what kind of trouble you were in last night. Who do you think those people were? Those were not just ordinary people there. If I told you their names, I'm not going to tell you their names, but if I did, I don't think you'd sleep so well.
Maybe that's what Kubrick's referring to. We consider what Kubrick's widow, Christiane, once said as well. Interesting, this was in the interview by John Ronson. All Stanley's life, he said, never go near power. Don't become friends with anyone who has a real power. It's dangerous. It's Kubrick's words. And it's rare that I consider anybody in the Hollywood Insider to have any sizable degree of integrity or adherence to positive values and principles. It's not often that happens in Hollywood. However it matters, I consider Stanley Kubrick to be an exception to the rule. He was clearly on the inside of the industry, and obviously he was a Hollywood illusionist. I find it fascinating that these little clues are there in his films, like the character Dr. Haywood Floyd in 2001, which is an anagram of Defy Hollywood. So he should make us cautious about his motives, but his films have told us more about the hidden global agenda than any other Hollywood endeavour, I would say, albeit largely in the form of allegory and metaphor. Was Kubrick's decision to enact several forms of metaphorical disclosure prompted by guilt, obligation, or simply because he could? Did he have a weird, twisted sense of humour or something? Who knows? Did he become a prisoner of the industry that he once loved, prompting him to articulate things that he came to see and know? We may never know any of these factors for certain, obviously, now that he's passed away. His reclusive nature was attributed to the controversy surrounding A Clockwork Orange, and his disdain for the way in which society was generally heading. Particularly he cited the crime culture of New York as an example on one occasion. Kubrick displayed many obsessive-compulsive traits throughout his entire life, certainly in his directorial skills. He often behaved bizarrely. He was known to wander around his estate brandishing a shotgun at all hours of the day and night. I'm not saying he was doing it all the time, but he did do it. It should give us a cause to wonder, was he fueled by a degree of paranoia rather than merely reclusive tendencies? That he was a bit eccentric. It's ultimately tragic that his artistic genius became so badly infected by his associations with the agenda. However, at the end, it seems that he tried, unlike most others in Hollywood, to show us a little truth. And me personally, for that, I believe we are indebted to him. With that, I just want to say thank you very much for listening tonight. I have copies of my book if anybody's interested in buying one. I hope you've enjoyed what I've talked about. Thank you very much. Thank you.